וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה ולא ילמדו וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה לא ישגו אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה לא ישגו عد ملحمة لا يساقو يلقو يحارب فلا يلمدو عد ملحمة فلا يلمدو
soldier who immediately tossed a burning brand to his head. But most scholars do not believe this is really true. The anger over the many casualties caused by the Jews and the understanding that as long as the temple stood, the Jews who continued to fight decided the temple's fate. With them sea and fear, on the 9th of Av, towards evening, Titus gave the order, and the following day, the 10th of Av, his soldiers set fire to the sanctuary. The temple that had been the source of inspiration, faith, ethics, and righteousness for the Jewish people and all humanity for centuries now went up in flames. The cries of pain of the Jews rose up to the heavens. Titus commands the burning of the lower city. In the upper city, the rebels continued to fight stubbornly for another month until the Romans take control of it too and set it ablaze. The story of the complete destruction of Jerusalem. Chilling testimony to the last moments of the city is found here between layers of ruins and ashes. The severed arm of the young woman with a spear alongside it. It appears that she too was unable to escape to the rebels' final refuge, the underground drainage channel. Buried inside the drainage channel, where the rebels hid 2,000 years ago, the last of the Jerusalem residents hid in this tunnel, here, where we stand. Suffocating darkness and terrible fear surrounded them. The Romans searched for them, found them, broke through the ceiling of the tunnel, and killed everyone. Among the finds discovered here that testify to the horror was this Roman sword, Roman knives, found in the floor, nearby were kibbutz, clay labs, and coals of revolt, with the Hebrew words, at least feet of fire, 2 words that expressed the heartfelt aspiration of the Jews who hid and were killed here in the drainage channel in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. It is possible that the death of these people in the depths of the ground was preferable to the horror suffered by their brethren who were taken captive. The prisoners were sold into lifelong slavery or died in peaceful, fleeing against wild animals and red years. Shock and sorrow, the Jewish prisoners who speak to the war in Jerusalem, building new art, and building cities. These are the two moments and a special poem that glorifies and commemorates the suppression of Judah. Jerusalem, leading the moment, descends under the layers of ash and destruction. After 5 years of persistent struggle against the strongest empire in the world, the second temple is destroyed.
So welcome everyone. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting way of starting off the stream, but yeah, I think this is one of the main reasons how we know that the Messiah hasn't come is that, I mean, for one, the temple has to be around for that to happen, but more than anything, that first song that we start off with, Lo Yisa Goy El Goy Cherev, so Lo Yisa Goy, so a nation shall not raise El Goy against another nation, Cherev, a sword, so nations shall not raise up sword against other nation, Lo Ilmedu Od Milchama, no longer shall they learn war anymore. And I don't know about you guys, but I think there's still war going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
And so,
can I ask you something about because I just wanted to pick up kind of where we left off of, because I know a lot of people have no idea what we've been talking about the past couple of days, and I think one of the main subjects I wanted to stay focused on tonight, which is, like I said, where we left off at. A couple nights ago, we were talking about how there's a passage that states something along the lines of there are like 42 angels, and they're each given providence over certain nations. And the angel that's given control over Israel is the one that's named Yahweh. And how the context of our conversation was that it seems that this is still kind of the situation that we're living with today, where it's everybody pitted against each other. And if it's quite possible that we do have sort of like tutelary spirits, maybe even ancestral spirits in a way, that everyone's been, I don't know, maybe not even ancestral or tutelary, but something like a nation spirit. And that, you know, like depending on where you grow up, you're just born into it.
No, I think you're touching on something really profound. When you get into this idea of egregores, there's a lot of occult writings upon this subject and this concept of maybe large groups of people either willingly or unwillingly creating sort of an entity that exists to propagate an ideology or to propagate like a meme of a certain type, you know. And in some ways you can say that corporations operate in this way. They create sigils, they self-perpetuate, but it gets more abstract when you start to get into things like ideologies and whatnot. Or like you were even saying, cultures and nations and religions. But I think we do see this to a certain extent. When people invest themselves into these frameworks, it tends to, you know, they tend to adopt that ideology, and they tend to work towards the goal of that specific group, right? And
yeah, even like subconsciously, because like you know, if you live in America, you're sort of teamed up with a bunch of other countries unwittingly. You know,
no,
like
for sure.
we
Like I
have
grew up,
contracts with South America. We have like Canada's part of America, and nobody talks about it.
yeah, right. We grew up as staunch allies, right? Always
Yeah.
just assuming that America is going to defend Canada and vice versa, right? Excuse me. But no, and you see this often in just like a really great concept to look at is individuality, which is such a cornerstone of America and even Canadian culture. But then in other parts of the world, you see this completely downplayed, you know, or not important at all, right? Like in China, right? It's seen as something
Good point.
that could be detrimental to the common
Yeah,
good.
it's against their cultural way to like stick out. That there's a saying, something like this: the nailhead that sticks out gets nailed down the hardest.
Interesting. It's
Whereas from children, we're told to be our unique selves, right? At all costs.
It's similar to this idea of trying to avoid the attention of the evil eye.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Have you never heard of that concept?
Yeah, but what do you mean?
So basically, like it is something that's big in Judaism. I mean, you'll find it especially with I think especially with Sephardic women primarily, especially with, you know, like the old, kind of the more traditional you are, the it's like one of those old wives' tales. But I mean, it's something that it has a lot of resonance within tradition. It's this idea of like, you know, if you show off like, you know, really expensive jewelry, or, you know, really nice car, and like, you know, you're kind of shoving it in people's faces. Given it's not like a victim blaming, but it's kind of like, don't do that because you're going to attract unwanted attention. It's this idea of the ayin hara, but it's connected with the idea of jealousy. That jealousy creates this like almost like a demonic presence. And
oh, wow, that's super interesting. I've actually never heard it explained that way.
So I mean, like, there is this like functionalist reason where it's like, you know, you shouldn't try, you know, because someone might steal it from you. But more than that, it's about you shouldn't, because it's like you're showing off your vanity, and you're kind of you're exposing yourself to basically to
Man, that's like a J.R. Tolkien, very J.R. Tolkien. Like when you wield the ring of power, the eye of Sauron can see you.
oh,
yeah, well, he takes all that from the Greek myths anyway. So
yeah, it just made me think. So what do you think? What do you think the relation could be to, like, you know, for example, like on the topic of angels, we have so many different classes of angels, almost, you know, like there's God, and we have some stories where God becomes man. So is it a man who's being euhemized? How do you say it?
Euhemerized.
Like euhemerized. There you go. Like, so where he's becoming a god through the myth, or is it we have like an angelic spirit who someone's contacting, that's sort of like oracular, where you know you're asking, what do I do for my people? And it's telling you, and you're just putting faith in the fact that this thing is not going to try to screw me over and send me to my death. Or is it something along the lines of where God is becoming man, and you know what's what do you think is the difference between the two?
Well, I think we can even go just before we get into difference. I think we can go a level deeper. We can go the Socratic way, which is, or the Zoroastrian way, which is that every single person has their own personal daimon, and this daimon is their future self that has realized their full extent and has escaped from the cycle of death and rebirth, and they're teaching us how to do the same. You know, you do see that playing out in several different traditions. But you're right. You do also have these national deities and
The
these
reason why I got into like asking
ideological
the
deities.
difference is like the different. What do you think the difference would be if, like, you know, because we have classes of angels like archangels, and then there's like Olympian spirits. You know, there's like obviously angels that are a little bit more powerful than the rest of the angels, and then we have Lucifer and Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because as we can see from even the title of this video, it's like, who is Jesus and who is Lucifer, right? What is there even, like, how are they even interrelated, right? Is like, you have this figure, the Son of Man, and it's not clear if the Son of Man is even an angel, right? And if Jesus Christ is the Son of Man, I mean, you see that within the earliest Gospel of Mark, he's clearly identified as that. So he has this angelic like power, you know, and it gets so complicated. There's so many different levels to this, is what I'm trying to express here, right? And then when you throw in Lucifer on top of that, you know, and the snake figure, and this whole idea of breaking free, and you can apply that to Jesus still too, right?
Yeah, see, that's what I was gonna say, is because something was kind of forming in my mind while you were saying that. Like, you know, he's almost like, you know, God made me come down here and pay for your guys' sins. He's almost like, you know, you guys are making me be crucified because you're all messed up. I wouldn't have to do this otherwise if things had worked out better and you had obeyed in the garden.
No,
But
right?
it's almost
Doesn't
like
it?
he's
Sorry,
still
go
the
ahead.
snake. No, that was it.
Right. He's still the snake, but also doesn't it parallel the Prometheus myth? Isn't Jesus going and suffering for our greater glory? Right?
Wow.
Isn't Prometheus just Lucifer by another name?
Yeah, it's very Promethean. You're right, because the way that the Greek myth describes the bird piercing Prometheus so that he bleeds, you know, it draws to mind like Longinus' spear piercing Jesus' side, you know.
Exactly, right? The parallels are striking, you know? And just the extreme torment that Jesus is subjected to, right? It parallels that of the God. So you could easily see, you know, Greek, you know, people who are like the Jewish people who are more on the Greek side, seeing this and making that direct parallel, right?
So